Most people think land theft only happens in far-off stories, but this one happened right here in Colorado. And it wasn't an accident. It was deliberate. Dakota Flint inherited 47 acres of untouched forest from her grandfather. The deed was clean, the taxes always paid, and for decades the land had been nothing but quiet pines and open sky. She hadn't visited for 3 years. Life had been heavy: divorce, 2 kids in college, and endless overtime. But she still paid the property taxes every April without fail. $6,400, never late, all digital receipts saved. So in August of 2022, when she finally drove up to scatter her grandfather's ashes, she expected silence and trees. Instead, she found a brand new neighborhood, paved roads, fresh streetlights, construction trucks everywhere, families unloading furniture into homes they had each bought for $485,000, where her thick forest once stood. There were now 96 identical beige HOA-controlled houses lined up in rows like they'd sprouted overnight. She checked her GPS 4 different times. Same coordinates. This was her land. At the entrance, a security guard blocked her truck. Residents only. Dakota held up a photo of her deed on her phone. "I am the owner." The guard smirked. "Sure you are." And then a white Range Rover rolled up. The kind of car that announces its driver long before they step out. The driver was Cassandra Whitmore, the HOA president, mid-50s, polished white linen outfit, a permanent Botox surprise painted on her face, and the attitude of someone who'd never worked a real day in her life. She didn't bother looking at Dakota at first. "Problem, Ray?" she asked the guard. "This woman claims she owns the entire development." Only then did Cassandra turn her eyes, quickly scanning Dakota's work boots, worn jacket, and oil-stained hands. The narrator notes that Cassandra looked at her like she was trash someone left on the curb. "How cute," Cassandra said. "If you're looking for construction work, honey, I can take your number." Dakota stayed calm. "I'm the legal owner. The Flint property." A small spark of annoyance flickered across Cassandra's face. That old thing." She pulled out her phone, scrolling lazily with manicured nails. "Our title company confirmed the land was abandoned, which means adverse possession. Everything here is legally ours now. We've already recorded $16 million in pre-sales." Dakota opened her mouth to speak, but Cassandra lifted a hand. "Look, sweetie, you're embarrassing yourself. And wasting my time." She pinched a business card between 2 fingers, holding it out like it was contaminated. "Call our attorney. He'll explain why your little claim is." "What's the legal term?" "Frivolous." Then Cassandra did something that sent ice through Dakota's veins. She lifted her phone and snapped a picture of Dakota's license plate. "Just in case you come back and vandalize anything," she said softly. "People like you don't beat people like us." The narrator pauses here, letting the weight settle. Dakota drove home with shaking hands. But she wasn't broken. She was furious. That night she spread every document her grandfather ever stored across her kitchen table. The 1971 deed. The tax receipts.
The maps. He'd kept everything in old,
weather-stained ledgers that still smelled faintly of pipe smoke and WD-40. And tucked inside the deed was his note. "Don't let the bastards take what's yours." She realized something important that night. Cassandra didn't know it yet, but she had just made the worst mistake of her life. Dakota didn't waste time. First thing Monday morning, she called the attorney on Cassandra's business card. Brian Keir. His receptionist answered with that overly sweet voice people use when they're about to deliver bad news. "Mr. Keir is unavailable, but he did authorize me to offer you a nuisance settlement." Dakota frowned. "A what?" $15,000 if you sign a quitclaim deed by Friday. The narrator calmly explains. A quitclaim deed is the legal version of surrendering. You give up all rights, no promises, no protections, no confirmation anyone else even has a rightful claim. It's how Dakota lost a timeshare in her divorce, $15,000 for $4.2 million of land. Dakota hung up. She needed a real attorney. The kind that makes developers sweat. A friend recommended one name. Lydia Chun. Lydia had a reputation. She'd beaten a railroad company so badly that they offered her a job just to make her stop. That was exactly the kind of lawyer Dakota needed. Dakota paid the $500 consultation fee on her credit card and prayed it wasn't a waste. Lydia's office smelled like polished wood and old leather. The space felt quiet and sharp, like walking into a library built for war. Lydia herself was in her early 60s. Gray hair pulled tight, reading glasses on a beaded chain. She listened to Dakota's entire story without interrupting once. When Dakota finished, Lydia held out her hand. "Show me your tax records." Dakota handed her the thick folder email confirmations, bank statements, and receipts from every year since her grandfather first bought the land in 1971. Lydia looked through them quietly. And for the first time, a faint smile tugged at the edge of her strict expression. "Colorado adverse possession," she began, "requires 18 years of open, continuous, hostile occupation and paying property taxes the entire time. If you paid them, I did. Every year. Then their claim," Lydia said, closing the folder, "is dead on arrival." Dakota let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. "So what now? An injunction? Shut everything down?" Lydia shook her head. "That's the worst thing you could do." Dakota blinked. "What do you mean?" The narrator slows here, letting Lydia's strategy settle in like a cold, brilliant storm. "If we stop construction now," Lydia explained, "Cassandra's company will file bankruptcy to protect themselves. That stalls everything for years. Meanwhile, 96 families who bought in good faith will sue everyone including you. It becomes a legal circus." She leaned forward. "But if you let them finish the houses, every last one, then file for a declaratory judgment, you will legally own all 96 of them." Dakota stared. "All the houses?" "Yes, because they built them on your land. Without rights. That's trespass, fraud, and unjust enrichment. And when we win, and we will win, the court will make them pay your legal fees on top of damages." Dakota felt the room tilt. "How much will this cost me up front?" $40,000. Maybe 50. Dakota swallowed. She had $12,000 in savings. Her truck needed a transmission. Her daughter's tuition was due in 2 months, but she heard herself say, "I'll figure it out." Lydia nodded approvingly. "One last thing," she said, her voice turning low, almost dangerous. "Do not contact Cassandra. Do not go on social media. Do not tell anyone but your children or one trusted friend. In property law, surprise is a weapon." Dakota signed the retainer agreement with shaking hands, and the battle officially began. The next 3 months felt like living on the edge of a blade. Every week, Dakota drove out to the property with a notebook and her phone, taking pictures from the public road, never stepping onto the land. Lydia's orders were strict: observe, document, do not interfere. So she watched as the construction spread like a slow-moving storm. 1 house. Then 6. Then 20. Massive trucks crawled across her land, carving roads like scars through the fields she'd played in as a child. Survey stakes multiplied. Foundations hardened. Rooftops formed lines against the horizon. To the workers, she was invisible. Just a woman parked off to the side, hands on the steering wheel, watching her world get rearranged without permission. But someone noticed. One Thursday afternoon, a white SUV rolled up beside her truck. The window lowered and a sheriff's deputy leaned out. "Ma'am,"
He said, adjusting his belt, "We got a report that you were harassing construction workers."
Dakota raised an eyebrow. "By sitting in my truck?" "Well," the deputy hesitated. "The caller said you were trespassing." The narrator's voice cools here. Dakota calmly pointed toward the dirt road leading onto the property. "I haven't stepped over that line." "Not once. You can check the tire tracks." The deputy looked. He saw that she was telling the truth. Her truck hadn't moved an inch off the public shoulder. He exhaled and his tone softened. "Look, between you and me, I don't know what's going on here. But you're not doing anything illegal. I just had to respond because someone filed the complaint." He paused. "And just so you're aware, the woman who called? She's already called 3 times this week." Dakota didn't need a name. She knew exactly who the caller was. Cassandra. As the deputy drove off. Dakota quietly recorded the patrol car leaving timestamped, geotagged. Saved to the evidence folder Lydia had told her to keep updated. 2 days later, the HOA's behavior escalated, while Dakota was at home making dinner. Her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. We've been informed you're interfering with development. Cease all disruptive actions or the HOA will pursue legal remedies. No signature. No introduction. Just a threat. She forwarded the text to Lydia. 30 seconds later, Lydia called. Did you respond? She asked. No.
Good, Lydia said.
Because that number belongs to Cassandra's husband. And he just harassed a legal landowner, which plays beautifully for us. Then Lydia added, almost cheerfully, let them keep digging. Every nail they hammer only strengthens our case. So Dakota kept watching. Week after week the homes rose higher. Driveways poured. Streets paved. Real estate signs went up with smiling families on glossy brochures. Her land, her family's land, was being advertised like it belonged to someone else entirely. Then came the moment the narrator lingers on. One Saturday, as Dakota sat observing, she saw something new. A line of homeowners touring the development with a realtor. They were excited, laughing, pointing, totally unaware that the ground beneath their future homes belonged to someone who had never agreed to any of this. Dakota felt a pang of guilt. Lydia's warning echoed in her mind. Do not confront the buyers. They're innocent. Our issue is with the developers. Stay silent. She did, but inside a quiet storm was building, because the more they constructed, the more they invested, the more they bragged on billboards and social media, the stronger her position became. By the end of the third month, 57 houses were fully framed. 20 more were halfway done. The remaining lots were already cleared. The development was nearly complete, and that was exactly when Lydia said the words Dakota had been waiting for. It's time. When Lydia said, it's time, she meant it. On a cold Tuesday morning, Dakota met her at the courthouse. The building felt ancient stone columns, worn steps, and that heavy silence that always hangs around places where people lose money, custody, or freedom. Lydia handed Dakota a copy of the filing packet. Petition for declaratory judgment, quiet title action, trespass, and unjust enrichment claims. Request for injunctive relief post-judgment. Dakota didn't understand half of it. But she understood the weight. This wasn't a complaint. This wasn't a dispute. This was a legal declaration. The entire development sits on my land. And I want the court to recognize it. The clerk stamped the packet. The sound echoed like a hammer. It was officially war. The developer panics within 48 hours. All hell broke loose. Cassandra's LLC received service first. Then the construction company. Then the private equity firm behind the financing. Then the HOA board. Dakota wasn't there to see their reactions, but the narrator describes it exactly as Lydia explained over the phone. Oh, they're scrambling, Lydia said. Your filing hit them like a freight train. They had no idea you had counsel. They thought you were just a scared woman sitting in her truck. Dakota allowed herself the smallest smile. 1 week later, Lydia received a frantic email from the developer's corporate attorney asking for a meeting. Lydia declined. Why not hear them out? Dakota asked. Because desperate people don't negotiate, Lydia replied. They beg. And we don't want their desperation to cool down yet. The builders speed up construction instead of freezing the project. The developers did the opposite. They rushed. Workers started arriving at dawn, leaving long after dark. Lights glowed on half-finished roofs. Crews hammered non-stop. Dakota watched from her truck as they installed sidewalks, driveways, even mail kiosks. They think finishing faster will help them, Lydia told her. But every improvement increases your leverage. They are building equity on land you own. Dakota shook her head. All of this, and not one person thought to check the deed? Oh, they checked, Lydia said. They just didn't like the answer. Cassandra lied to her investors because she thought you were too small to fight. The narrator lets that truth settle like a bruise. Court day 3 weeks later. The hearing was scheduled. Dakota walked into the courtroom wearing the same navy blazer she'd worn to her daughter's graduation. Lydia stood beside her, sharp calm, radiating the kind of confidence that could cut steel. Across the aisle sat Cassandra, her husband, 2 board members, and 3 lawyers who looked like they charged $600 an hour just to breathe. The judge entered. Everyone stood. The moment the case was called, Cassandra's lead attorney launched into a performance worthy of Broadway. Your Honor, this woman, he pointed at Dakota, has harassed workers, interfered with development, and is attempting to extort my clients by making false ownership claims that have no legal basis. Lydia didn't flinch when the judge finally turned to her. She spoke with quiet precision. Your Honor, my client has paid property taxes on this land for over 50 years. The defendants built a 96-home subdivision on it without title, without easements, without purchase, and without her consent. The judge raised an eyebrow. And do you have documentation? Lydia nodded once. Of course. She opened a leather folder and placed a thick stack of records on the judge's bench. Then this was the moment. The narrator slows down as if time itself freezes. Lydia pulled out a single, crisp document. The original recorded deed. This is the property that the defendants claim belongs to them, she said. But as you can see, it does not. She handed the deed to the clerk. The judge studied it. The courtroom fell into a hush so deep that even breathing felt loud. The judge finally looked up. You're telling me the entire development was built on the plaintiff's land? Lydia nodded. Double quotes. Yes, Your Honor. The judge blinked. Cassandra's face went pale. Her husband swore under his breath. One of the attorneys quietly closed his laptop, defeated already. For the first time, Dakota felt the ground shift in her direction. The judge set the deed down gently, as though it were the detonator to a bomb. He folded his hands. Counsel for the defendants, he said calmly. How exactly did your clients build 96 homes on land they do not own? Silence. Cassandra's attorney cleared his throat, searching for any thread to grab onto. There must be some mistake. Our surveys indicated, Lydia cut in, her voice steady as a scalpel. Your surveys were done by a firm owned by Cassandra's brother-in-law. They never filed any of the required plats with the county. They also ignored 3 notices from the assessor's office asking who would be paying the new development taxes.
The
courtroom rippled with whispers. Cassandra shrank into her seat. It happened faster than anyone expected. Cassandra suddenly stood up, voice cracking. I didn't know, she cried. They told me the land was abandoned. They told me the owner was dead or missing. I didn't know she was real. The judge raised an eyebrow. You were confident enough to build a subdivision. Cassandra covered her face with trembling hands. Her attorney tugged her arm gently. Please sit, he whispered, mortified, but she was spiraling. We already sold 20 homes. She blurted out. There are families expecting move-in dates. We're out of loan money. If this goes through, we're ruined. The narrator's voice stays calm, steady, but Dakota just watched her, silently. Without saying a single word, she remembered Lydia's advice. Do not engage. Do not empathize. Do not argue. Let the law speak for you. When Cassandra finally collapsed into her chair, Lydia approached the bench with one more paper. Your Honor, this is the county's payment ledger. It shows 53 consecutive years of tax payments by the plaintiff's family. She slid the paper forward, then added, and here is the defendant's payment history. A blank sheet. No dates. No stamps, nothing. In Colorado, Lydia continued, failure to pay taxes for even 1 year voids any claim of ownership under adverse possession. They never paid once. Dakota could feel the tension drain out of her chest. The legal trap Lydia had set from day one had finally snapped shut. The judge leaned back, rubbed his temples, and spoke with the heavy patience of someone who had seen human folly 1,000 times before. This court finds that the plaintiff is the sole lawful owner of the property in question. The defendants have engaged in unauthorized construction and are liable for trespass. An unjust enrichment. He paused long enough for Cassandra to start shaking. I am ordering the defendants to either purchase the land at fair market value or relinquish all structures built upon it to the plaintiff. Then he added the words that sealed the fate of the entire development. And because the plaintiff should not bear the cost of defending against such an egregious violation, the defendants will also be responsible for her legal fees. Lydia nodded once, satisfied. Dakota felt her knees go weak. Not from fear, but from relief so powerful it felt physical. Across the courtroom, Cassandra began to cry silently. The ruling sent shockwaves through the county. The developers tried to negotiate. They begged investors for money. They attempted to restructure loans, but the math didn't lie. Fair market value for that much land, plus 96 fully built homes, was a number no bank would touch. They were drowning in Dakota. She waited. Just like Lydia told her. 3 months later, the LLC folded. The construction company pulled out. The investors wrote off the loss. And the HOA, which technically only existed on her land, dissolved completely. In the final settlement, Dakota accepted full ownership of every structure, all 96 homes, all streets, all utilities, every inch of the development. The narrator lets this victory settle. A woman they dismissed. A woman they underestimated. A woman they tried to intimidate. Now owned an entire neighborhood, the land that had once belonged to her grandfather. It was now worth more than anything her family had ever dreamed of. The courtroom was silent as Judge Ramirez fixed her eyes on Preston and Cassandra. Is this email authentic? Preston began to rise, but his attorney, Keir, tightened a hand on his arm. Your Honor, we need to confer with our clients. That sounds like a yes, the judge replied dryly, snapping the folder shut. Here's what's going to happen. The motion to dismiss is denied. This case is moving to trial expedited schedule. She turned a sharp stare toward Cassandra. In the meantime, I'm issuing a temporary restraining order. Whitmore Development is to stop all sales, marketing, and transfers related to Ridgeline Heights. Effective immediately. Then, with a tone that could curdle steel, and Mrs. Whitmore, if I see one more Facebook post, one more anonymous complaint to code enforcement, or one more threat directed toward Mr. Flint, I will hold you in contempt. Are we clear? Cassandra's confident mask cracked. Yes, Your Honor, she whispered. Outside the courthouse, Lydia caught up to Dakota. That email, she said casually, came from a whistleblower, one of Preston's former partners. He's been waiting 5 years to get revenge for what Preston did in Aspen. Dakota blinked. How'd you even find him? Lydia smirked. I'm very good at my job. For the first time in months. Dakota felt the weight on his chest ease the tiniest bit. That night he bought a bottle of whiskey he absolutely could not afford, sat on his back porch, and watched the snow fall in thick, quiet sheets. His phone buzzed nonstop. Emma, Tyler, Marcus from Wyoming. Even his ex-wife Jennifer offering a cautious, "Heard you had a good day in court." But the message that mattered came at 9:47 p.m. My office tomorrow. 10 a.m. Bring coffee? We're building the kill shot. Lydia. Dakota showed up early, carrying 2 coffees and a box of donuts, the appropriate snack for planning someone's legal destruction. Lydia's conference room was a battlefield of evidence, a whiteboard spanning the entire wall, packed with dates, arrows, and names like a conspiracy map. You brought donuts? She said, grabbing a glazed one. I like you more now. What is all this? This, she said, tapping the board with her marker, is how we turn your property dispute into a criminal referral. She circled Preston's name. That email was the grenade. Now we bring out the artillery. She'd spent the night with her paralegal digging through every project Whitmore Development touched in the last decade. 7 projects. 7 mountain towns. Same pattern every time: target vulnerable land, file aggressive claims, build fast, sell faster. Let insurance handle the fallout. They're not developers, Lydia said. They're land pirates with LLCs. What made Dakota different was simple. He had proof. Decades of his grandfather's records, tax payments, surveys, ledgers that smelled like tobacco. His own receipts, photos, GPS tags. A flawless chain of ownership. Most victims didn't have that. Lydia laid out the plan. Depose everyone, Preston. Cassandra, Their title company, contractors. Someone always cracks, usually the title company. Yes, the same law used against the mafia. If we can prove a pattern of fraud and it becomes federal, Lydia said. Federal means treble damages. She wrote the number on the board. Prezan's face would pale at that figure. They can't pay that, Dakota whispered. No, which is why they'll settle. But here's the beautiful part, their construction loans were personally guaranteed. If Whitmore Development goes under, lenders will go after their houses, their cars, their bank accounts. She actually smiled. Lydia really enjoyed asset seizure law. Dakota asked what she needed from him. 3 things. She said, first, a full timeline of every visit he'd made to his property. He had already been keeping a log. Smart, Lydia said. Second, allies anyone Whitmore had wronged. Former employees, unpaid contractors. Neighbors. Dakota knew exactly where to start. Third, this goes public, Lydia said. Real public. Local news. Channel 9, investigative reporter Patricia Hughes. Dakota froze. You want me on TV? I want us on TV. Those 96 families aren't enemies. They're victims too. And if we're going to win, we need the truth out there. She handed Dakota a folder of deposition schedules. When this is over, she added, the Whitmores will pay my fees. All of them. Dakota walked out feeling something he hadn't in months. Purpose. The room overlooked the snowy Rockies, quiet and serene. Unlike the tension inside, Preston arrived in a charcoal suit with his $800 an hour attorney. Diane Kelso. He didn't even glance at Dakota. After the oath, Lydia started soft name, occupation. Then she slid the email across the table. Do you recognize this? I do. Did you write it? Yes. So you knew Mr. Flint legally owned the land. Kelso leaned forward. Don't answer that.
He has to, Lydia reminded her. Preston shifted.
I knew someone named Flint was listed. But our title company said the property was abandoned. Lydia's pen clicked sharply. Which title company? Rocky Mountain Title Group? Preston swallowed. He knew that answer would haunt him. Question after question. Lydia dismantled him. By noon, he was sweating through his shirt. By the end, he'd contradicted himself 4 times. When Lydia finally said, no further questions, he practically fled. Kelso lingered. Your client should settle, she told.
Lydia, your client should have
thought of that before committing fraud. Name a number. 10 million, Lydia said calmly. Plus dissolving Ridgeline Capital. Plus personally financing the transfer of all 96 homes to the residents. And an apology. Kelso laughed bitterly. He'll never agree. Then we'll see him in court, Lydia replied. And Channel 9 will be right there with us. 2 days later, Dakota's son Tyler called from his restaurant job in Fort Collins, voice shaky. A man in a suit had shown up, claiming to be a private investigator. Probing into Dakota's past, hinting at violence. Trying to get Tyler fired. Dakota's stomach dropped. Dad. Am I going to lose my job? No, don't speak to him again. Have him contact my attorney. Dakota called Lydia immediately. It's witness tampering, she said. Send me the photo of the business card. Thomas Brennan, Apex Investigations. I'm filing an emergency motion. But the harassment didn't stop. On January 23rd, Dakota got an email from the IRS, audit notice, citing a tip from a concerned third party. Dakota was a W-2 employee with simple taxes. This was retaliation. Lydia was furious. They're panicking. And panicking people make mistakes. She was right. A real estate blog obtained the Ridgeline Heights contracts. Every buyer had paid between $450,000 and $530,000. For homes built on stolen land, headlines exploded. Homeowners panicked. Dakota's inbox flooded. Sarah Chun called in tears, her entire life savings tied up in a house. The title company now refused to insure. Dakota reassured her as best he could, though he didn't have answers yet. On January 30th, reporter Patricia Hughes arrived at Dakota's home. She interviewed him thoroughly about his grandfather. The land, Cassandra's smear campaign, the email. The family's caught in the crossfire. When Dakota asked whether she'd still air the piece despite Cassandra threatening to sue, Patricia smiled. Absolutely. Threats mean I'm getting close. The piece aired February 2nd at 6 p.m. Aerial shots of Ridgeline Heights. Dakota's interview. Grandpa's ledgers. Preston's email. County officials accepting Whitmore donations. The clip went viral within hours. Dakota received a threatening call from a blocked number. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. Lydia told him to lock his doors, vary his routes. 2 days later, someone broke into Dakota's home and left a note on the table. Drop it or lose everything. A neighbor provided a license plate number Apex. Investigations, things were spiraling. Trial day, February 9th, the courthouse was swarming with cameras. Homeowners filled the benches. Dakota felt their eyes on him. Fear, hope, uncertainty. Cassandra sat rigid in a cream suit. Preston looked exhausted. Judge Ramirez entered. Lydia's opening statement boomed through the courtroom, cutting. Precise, devastating. This case is about theft, she said. Not with masks or guns, but with forged documents and greed. Preston's email, blown up to poster size, made the whole room gasp. Witness after witness confirmed the pattern: bribes, harassment, false complaints. Preston crumbled under questioning. Cassandra invoked the fifth. By evening, the judge announced she'd rule within 24 hours. In the hallway, homeowners surrounded Dakota. Will we lose our homes? No, he said. You keep them. Every single one. Tears, applause, relief. February 10th, the ruling: they won everything. Full ownership of all 47 acres. $4.22 million in damages. All legal fees paid. Criminal referral. Whitmore development dissolved. Their assets seized. Federal charges filed. Cassandra banned from real estate for life. But now came a new challenge. 96 families living on his land. March 15th. The town hall. Dakota gathered every homeowner in the unfinished clubhouse. I'm not here to punish you, he said. You bought in good faith. You proposed a community trust. Each family would own their home for the amount they originally paid. No extra, no interest. Past payments counted. Future payments went to the trust for roads, taxes, and a scholarship fund. The room erupted in tears and applause. Legacy: the William Flint Memorial Scholarship launched that fall. Dakota built a small cabin on the untouched north acreage. Life slowly settled. Quiet mornings, pine trees, visits from family. Patricia Hughes won another Emmy for the follow-up piece. Sarah Chun's daughter drew Dakota a picture of him holding a giant deed. It hung on his fridge. He often thought of his grandfather's note. Don't let the bastards take what's yours. But now he understood something deeper. What's yours isn't just land. It's the people you protect, the community you build, the justice you fight for. Have you ever dealt with an HOA nightmare? A shady developer, or someone who thought money made them untouchable? Share your story in the comments. Let's build a library of how ordinary people take on corruption and win. And if you enjoyed this one, hit subscribe to Neighborhood HOA Chaos for more unbelievable real-world battles, courtroom victories, and stories where the little guy comes out swinging. And remember, always keep your receipts.